So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself.
Let's look at the level of divine science now, where we come, so to say, legitimately in respect to the whole system in its integrity. We come to that point where the calculus does come in its full-blownness. And we see that that calculus is the representation, it represents the fact that that infinite one principle has an idea of itself. And that idea is its own self-expression, inner self-expression, self-operation. It's its own self-operation. It is the way now that the synonymous term expresses itself, is its idea as a whole, okay? Its idea as a whole. Now, life will have a definite relationship to its idea as a whole, to its own realm of self-expression, the way it expresses itself. So we say, well, then what is life in that realm? And the Word begins to declare, to tell us that life is the Father in this realm. And if you want to know where these terms, Father, Son, and Mother, have come from, I will again remind you that this is in the glossary, where she says that something about, in the scriptures, life is represented by the Father, truth is represented by the Son, and love is represented by the Mother. So we take those terms in, they come in at the standpoint of divine science, at the consciousness level of divine science. And so we see that life is saying, I am the Father, I'm the Father of this realm. And this realm is the realm of the existence or the existency of life. This is the relationship now of life and life's infinite idea of itself. It's a relationship of existence, of a beingness going on. Why do I say a ness? Now we're in divine science where we have that oneness of principle and idea. What is that oneness from life's standpoint? It's a beingness. And that's what we mean with the term existence. Coexistence, I think, brings it out even more clearly, that you feel that life and life's idea are being together. They exist together. They are being what they are in oneness, in togetherness. That's coexistence. And then the Christ would come in and tell us that this is a realm that we have to make a concession for ourselves. So we would say, well, nothing can happen to that realm to render it less than what it is. It can never diminish. It can never run down. It can never be exhausted. See that? Why? Because of the Christ. The Christ maintains that relationship at its highest point, at its maximum identity. And so the Christ says that's a sustaining. It's self-sustaining, that realm. You hear that it couldn't ever become less than what it is. The Father is always the Father, in other words. That existence, that coexistence, that relationship of the coexistency of life and life's expression is ever at its maximum, ever sustained by life. And this is always in expression, the sustaining of the Christ, sustaining that which the Word is, the Word of life is. And then we come to Christianity, and we said we get a kind of an overlaying there of the whole sense of the realm of the oneness of life and life's idea, with another sense of containing that, holding the full expression of that has an unlimited, infinite expression, and it is held. And what does that look like? It's the ever-presence of life. It's the here-ness of life, the now-ness of life, the timelessness, the spacelessness of life. So we have those terms that sound tiny and spacey, the permanency, and yet they use a time touch, a time referent, a space referent, to bring out just the opposite. Just the opposite. That it's the permanency, the continuity, the everlastingness of life. So this is the realm of the fullness of life, the fullness of that Father in expression as its creation, the creation of life, the whole creation of life, the whole universe, the whole cosmos of life. Christianity says this is fullness. This is what life is as the fullness of being, the abundance of being, the ever-presence of being. And finally we come to the standpoint of science. Science says, how do I look at that as I really hold that within myself? I, science, am Word, Christ, and Christianity. I, science, have given you the Word, the Christ, and Christianity to actually to be able to begin to understand what I, science, am going to tell you about life and life's idea. Namely that life and life's idea, life in its full expression, is the expression of eternal life. I am eternal. I am the eternal one in this realm. I am the divine method. I am the redundancy principle. So you have that idea method coming in. It's the fifth scientific tool. So we had what? Law, the law of mind, the order of spirit, the rule of soul, this system of principle, and now the method of life. And you know that you can take a term now like that method, and see so much. What is a method? It is a way. It is the way to do something. The way to bring something forth, to bring it into being, isn't it? So that method really gives us, that one idea gives us so much to work with, because we can look back and see, well, actually, the method of life in terms of everything that we have been seeing, we've been looking at the method of life. The method of life is mind, spirit, soul, principle. That's life. That's life. So life doesn't stand in a vacuum somewhere, in a watertight compartment, separate from principle, soul, spirit, mind. But life says, I am mind, spirit, soul, principle, really operating as one, as one. Just as, when we looked at the rule of soul, we said the rule of soul is to go back to mind and spirit. Actually, the order of spirit is to go back to mind. Go back to the law of mind. So that spirit, when spirit talks about order, only spirit can talk about order because it can fall back on mind being there already. Then the rule of soul has to fall back on mind and spirit. Say, that's your rule. And that it's so practical for us on the plane of our life experience to see that we must adhere to the order of spirit. What does that mean? To go back to mind, to draw your vision, your insight, your information from mind, and to keep that pure, to keep that single, to keep it solitary, apart from any other vision, any other input, any other information. This is the order of spirit. It's the relationship, the unbroken relationship that exists in being between mind and spirit. And then when you come to soul, soul says, now you must adhere to the rule of soul. That's your scientific tool. What does that mean? Keep on going back to mind and spirit. That you go back to gather your vision and your big view of everything, of reality, from mind, and again to keep that separate from your human view, your personal view, your mortal view, the world view, anything else that says, I'm of you, I'm of you. I can form your vision. I can determine what you see. Soul says, no, the rule is go back to mind to gather your view, your vision, your insight, your inspiration, your inspired thought. See how simple these things are, and yet they're profound. They're really profound. And so then principle would say, yes, this is really the system. This is the system. Stay in the system of mind, spirit, and soul. Because this is really a creative power to it, a demonstrating power to it. It's both creative, and you will see it will be demonstrative. I'm the creative principle, and I'm the demonstrative principle. If you want to demonstrate something, you have to begin with the creative principle. So begin with mind, spirit, and soul. Mind, spirit, and soul cannot be broken up. They cannot be separated. They are not standing each on its own. They constitute the creative principle. We see as we go through these 7 in the word order that mind, spirit, and soul are the creative wing of the one principle, and then life, truth, and love are the demonstrative wing. That out of our trueness to the creative principle comes the demonstration of life, truth, and love. And so life then comes in and says, can you see that that creative principle as the true creator of everything now begins to demonstrate itself. In fact, it's at the point of demonstration. It's demonstrating life. In other words, what you want actually is what you have. You have already what you think you want, what you think you need at the point of mind. Now, life is saying you have it because in your sense of being true to mind, spirit, soul, and principle, you have everything. Because when you have the method, this is the method of life. Mind, spirit, soul, principle are the method of life. Isn't that something? So that there's an intimate relationship between principle and life, that life is just the demonstrating, the expressing of that creative principle, how that creative principle is able to just bring itself forth, demonstrate itself in absolute fullness and infinite applicability. Infinite applicability. So we have that term redundancy principle as the fifth in that series of illustrations of what is beginning to be seen in the world. We had the information principle, the ordering principle, the identity principle, the principle of self-organization, and now life says that I see the whole story, the whole question of what is going on everywhere as the redundancy principle. This is an interesting term. It has to be seen in the right light because ordinarily redundancy is considered to be a little bit of a negative term, you know. If something is redundant, it's superfluous. It's excess, unneeded excess. Or in England, of course, I think when they say that one is redundant, it means you're going to be fired. You're not needed. Uh-huh. You're too much. You're too much. You're one too many.
True. In technology, though, when you think of airplanes and space and things like that, the redundancy principle is the backup. So that if something fails, there's something behind it. Support it and keep it right up there where it belongs.
Oh, how marvelous. That's beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Actually, this is the way I pack when it's very near. The closer it gets to the time that I have to leave, the more redundant I become. You know, I had a sealed box that I needed just one thing out of that box, but I didn't have time to open it, so I threw the whole box in. You see? And this is the way being works. It comes to any single situation. It brings everything, doesn't it? It's the absolute full extent of abundance to bring everything, and we learn to work that way in science. Actually, we work that way when we come out from just the way we were looking at the level of science itself, and that is taking that level, that law, as the seven, then realizing so that the redundancy in that infinite one being is the redundancy of the seven, and the 7 times 7, and the 7 times 7 has all of the ideas of the 7 times 7, and then all of the application of the 7 times 7 and their ideas. The whole of being, so to say, is at every point, is existing at every point. And I love that example, that there's always that backup. The backup is, so to say, the whole system, the whole capability of expression, the whole possibility, potential for expression is always there. Does that make sense? You hear how big life is, that it means that's the way it is. That's the way being is. Well, we see that term eternal there, and one of you and I were talking yesterday after the class about this term eternal and the possibility of its placement on the level of science. And I think we can just weigh that. We have always found it to be on the level of divine science, or at least that's the paradigm to the present day, has been one of seeing that idea eternal on the level of divine science. And to my sense, if we see it there, it would be under science in the calculus. But you were feeling, as we spoke, that it may be appearing in science itself. Well, I quickly had a look at the dictionary, which is certainly not an exhaustive source of research. What one would need to do is to go back to the textbook. There is your source. And we would have to see what she says about eternal and indestructible. She does speak about indestructible life, and of course eternal life. Indestructible is a term similar to what we had been seeing about the term sinless in soul. We saw that she says soul is sinless, and she also speaks about indestructible life. And so we have taken it in that way, namely that life is incapable of being destroyed, incapable of becoming not life. And sinlessness of soul is the fact that soul can never deviate from itself, from its own identity as identity. So, these are good things because they're things that we can all weigh together as a scientific community and not feel that we have to make the conclusion right now about it. But, the more you ask these questions and the more you follow through with your research of the textbook, together with an intelligent usage of the other types of sources that one has, like a really fine dictionary. But just in the dictionary, checking it this morning, eternal means without beginning or end, existing through all time, everlasting, timeless, forever the same, always going on, never stopping, and perpetual. We see crossovers, between that level of science and divine science, and I think our real solution lies in our deeper study of the textbook. So you can take that for whatever further aid it might be. Perhaps we have it's without end, especially when you are going along with life, with the way that, what can I say, that the whole evolution of everything, the evolution of consciousness, what's coming up. I mean, you have a whole vast, those of you that know the recent classes will know that we have had marvelous terms coming in from, I would say, in the cybernetic, the divine cybernetic language, and how that's being developed, if I dare to say, in the world. And there is no in the world. It's one universe, it's one realm, one cosmos of the expression of one divine nature. And so you have terms coming up. We have a different attitude of our universe. I think that love has brought that in, that we no longer try to exclude it and say, oh, that's out there, and don't look at that, and don't listen to that, and don't take that in. That's mortal mind, that's animal magnetism, it isn't. gift of love. Love says, ooh, guess what? That's me too. That's me too. I'm everywhere. I'm everything. And it only needs to be seen through the eyes of love, the grid of love, the conscious understanding of love, to see the beauty of it, to see that nothing else is in expression except the 7, the 4, and the 4. The one system, science, the science of being. Everything is the science of being in expression, either understood or not understood. Understood or not understood. We're beginning to understand it. That takes the apparent duality out of it. The apparent duality.